So at least you guys got your pajamas on. If someone naked does show up, I'm not stopping the meeting. We're just going to have a good laugh and keep right on going.
We'll just roll with it.
Where you guys say that, but were you guys on the meeting with Kim?
Was
The
not.
real
Yeah.
producers? Oh man, legendary. Some guy, he's jumped in on the meeting. What do you call it? Can't think of the name, but he bombed the meeting basically and butt naked, man.
My God.
That was quite a funny moment. All right, you guys ready to learn some of you already probably know more than I do, but I know just enough to be dangerous about real estate investing and investors and so forth. So that's the purpose of today. We got, I think, 15 on here. I'm going to go ahead and get started. You guys know me. I like to start on time, end on time. Let me just check. Am I recording? Yes, I'm recording. Now, you know I'm a one-man show over here, you guys, so I know there's a chat box, but just know I'm not going to see whatever you put in the chat box. So if you need to tell me you can't hear me or something's not working, you got to just speak up because I will not see it. If you have a question, jump in and ask, but I won't see it in the chat box. Okay, we good?
Good.
Right on. I don't even see my chat box. I don't even have one right now. Anyway, all right, so think like a real estate investor. That's what we're doing here today, trying to think like a real estate investor. So, oh, already I got trouble. All right, got four goals. Ooh, somebody's typing. I think I'm going to put everybody on mute. You do have the opportunity to unmute yourself. Okay. So mute.
Hey, Chris, I just learned that if you hold the space bar, it will temporarily unmute you while you talk.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for the tip. All right. I think I have muted everyone. When new people show up, they may come in unmuted. Let's see. Mute participants on entry. Okay, I think I got everybody muted. So you'll have to unmute yourself again if you want to tell me something's not working or if you have a question. All right, so here's the four goals. Four goals for today. Number one, understand why in the world would somebody want to invest in real estate? Why would you even want to do that? That sounds like work, you know, the plumber, you know, the toilet clogged up, getting calls at night. So why would somebody choose to do that? We'll learn how to run the numbers. That's investor talk for see if this thing makes sense. See if an investment makes sense. You run the numbers on a property. Talk the talk. So there's all kinds of lingo that's a little bit intimidating if you're not comfortable with it or if you've never heard it before, just like anything else, you know, tying your shoes was difficult the first time, but now we don't even think about it. So if I use some lingo you're not familiar with, unmute yourself and say, slow down there, Sandman. Tell us what that means. All right. So, and then finally, I hope the last step will be you can decide, this is really two-part, decide whether you want to work with investors. We'll look at the pros and cons of that. And also decide whether maybe you want to invest in real estate if you're not doing that already. We are in the real estate business, so it would make sense if you did decide that you wanted to do that. And just secretly, not so secretly now, I'm hoping one or two of you will say, oh my gosh, I had no idea, and want to be a real estate investor after we hang up today. All right, so that's where we're going. Real quick, what does it mean when we say an investor? There are a lot of types, but mainly there are three kinds, you guys. There's a wholesaler, okay? Wholesaler, that means I go out and I look for good deals. Maybe I advertise for motivated sellers. I don't maybe I buy the property, maybe I just put a contract on it, and then I flip it to somebody else who actually fixes up the property or buys and holds property. But I don't actually hang on to it. So that's type number one. Type number two, fix and flippers. Okay, we have a lot of house flippers actually that work at Northeastern Group. I don't know if you're aware of that, but we have at least half a dozen that buy properties that need repairs or are undervalued for some reason. They fix them up and then they resell them, sometimes immediately, sometimes in a year or two, but that is another way of doing real estate. That I put that in the value adder category. It's more like speculation than it is long-term investing, because they're in and then they fix and then they're out. So the main one we're going to talk about today are buy and hold. And that's really when we talk about real estate investors. In my opinion, that's really what we're talking about, people that are in it for the long haul, you know. So that's where we're going. And I want to start with a little poll. Now, I've never done a poll, but I'm going to try it right now. Launch poll. So if you guys, we're just going to take like 20 seconds if you could respond to this poll. All right. Yeah, that's cool. Seems to be working. Look at that. I don't know. Can you guys see the results there? I don't know if you can see just the questions or the results, but I'll share the results with you here. We just take 10 more seconds. 12 of 16 have voted. So you other 4, put down your coffee and vote real quick. All right. Get a lot more out of it if we participate. So I'm going to end the poll now. I'm afraid the results are going to go away, so I'm not going to end it until I tell you the results. So the first one was yes, buy and hold. They have 1 to 10 doors. So doors just means unit. It could be 10 apartments, 10 houses, etc. So 3 people on the call are investors, 4 if you include me, that do buy and hold and have 1 to 10 properties. There are 2 people on that have more than 10 properties. Nobody said they fix and flip. That's interesting. I know at least one person's on here that does. And then nope, 10 people. So 2/3 of us said no, we don't invest in real estate at all. I'll share results there. So you can see the results. So that's cool. Let me take that down. That's the results to our poll. I'm going to just look at y'all for a minute. I had you off the screen, but how are we doing? Can you hear me? Everything's working? Shake your head if all's good. Yeah? All right. All right, I'm going to close this back down. So next, why? Why in the world would we invest in real estate? Must be pretty good, right? Or we're just dumb if we invest in it. I'm not sure which, but I think I can convince you. So let's play a little game here. We got $25,000 to invest. Karen, $25,000 bonus you just got. So how are we going to spend that money is the question. How are we going to invest it? So we got a few options, right? Got a multitude of options. Here's one. Get that Benz, right? We can get that Benz. I'm going to drop the $25,000 over here at Mercedes-Benz of Fort Wayne and get this fine automobile. That's one thing we could do with $25,000, right? All right, so I'm going to share with you a key. I'm going to show twice in this presentation. When I show this little key, that means just stop what you're doing and pay attention, because there's something here that can change your whole life. And this is one of them. So I learned this, and it really changed the way I think about money. So it's from Robert Kiyosaki of Rich Dad, Poor Dad fame. And he said, an asset is something that puts money into my pocket. A liability is something that takes money out of my pocket. Now, see, this guy has a way of talking that just boils things down to the very most basic fundamental idea. An asset is something that puts money in my pocket. So let's see, does this put money in my pocket or take money out of my pocket? If I pay cash for it. I guess I got you muted so you can't answer. But maybe until I showed you that quote from Kiyosaki, maybe you thought this was an investment, like this is an asset. This is not an asset. This is a liability, because you got to put tires on it. You got to put brakes. Now, it might be a good liability. It might be a good expense. I'm not saying to not buy a Mercedes. I got a big old Lexus myself that's definitely a liability. Cost me a lot of money putting gas in that thing and tires and everything else. But it's not an asset, and it's not it's certainly not an investment. I know. There's always one guy that's got a split hair. So if this were a Corvette Stingray from 1967, maybe it'd be an investment at that point. There's always one guy. So yes, it's possible. But in general, even your own house, he would say, is a liability because it costs you money. It doesn't put any money in your pocket. Now, if I take that car and I rent it out to Greg Boughton on a monthly basis, and he pays me $800 a month for the use of this, now guess what? Now this car is now an investment. It puts money in my pocket rather than take money out of my pocket. So that is a massive key, and that's how I want you to think. So CDs, I could take my 25, right? I'm a very safe investor. I don't want to lose my 25. So I could put it in CDs, right? So let's take a look at today's CD rates. Anybody have an idea what CD rates are going for? CD rates, certificate of deposit, bank insured, government will not let you lose your money. So let's look at a 10-year certificate of deposit over here at Flagstar Bank. 120 months, certificate of deposit. I give them my $25,000. They put it in their vault, and they give me 0.4% interest on that. So I let them use my 25 grand, and they give me $100 for letting them use it. They give me $100 a year for the next 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, they give me back my $25,000. Raise your hand if that seems like a good deal to you. Hopefully no one raises their hand, because that is definitely not a good deal. All right, so let's go back to my presentation here. All right, so that's one thing we could do. We could buy a car that's a liability. Is this an asset? Is it an asset? Sorta. I mean, kinda. Gets me $100 a year. So this is where most people think, all right, the stock market, right? That's an investment. That puts money in my pocket over time. Does the stock market go up over time or down over time? A lot of people say it depends. So the average return, if you look back since basically the last 100 years, the average return is about 10% on the stock market. About 10%, okay? You like roller coasters? Because it's a roller coaster. Here's the downside of the stock market. Yeah, you make 10%, but these are the years since 1930. So some years it goes up 35%. The next year, or the next 4 years in the Great Depression, it went down and down and down some more. I mean, it went down 90% from the high. And then it went up and then it went down. And so if we look over here, the last 10 years have been tremendous in the stock market. There's only been one down year. This year we took a beating in March at the beginning of the coronavirus, but it's already back above where it was. So you can make about 10% per year in the stock market. So just so you know, if you took your 25,000, you plunked it in there and you didn't touch it again for the next 10 years, and it increased at 10% per year, guess how much money you'd have? How many say 30,000? No, 68,000. They go up quite a bit, because the first year you make 10% on your 25,000. That's $2,500. But the second year, now you got 27,500. So the second year it goes up $2,750, and so on for 10 years. So at the end of that, you walk away with 68,000 as opposed to 25,000. Pretty good, right? So let's look at real estate. So here is a typical Fort Wayne property. That one's in Millstone. So here are the median home prices in the United States. And this is in the last 40 years. So you could see I mean, it does go up and down as well, but nothing in comparison to the stock market. I mean, these are little blips. Even this one, you know, is what, 15% decline or something like that. So even the worst case scenario, prices don't drop through the bottom, but over time, as you can see here at the bottom, 5.4% in the entire United States that they've gone up per year. So 5.4%. So why in the world would you be interested in that if the stock market is going up 10%? That doesn't make sense, does it? All right, so here is Fort Wayne, Indiana. So according to Zillow, you can't trust Zillow for everything, but they do have good historical data. They're not as good at predicting the future, but they do know what sold, for how much, how long did it take, and so forth. So if I look here, whoops, if I look here at Zillow, by the way, let's click on this. This is live, up to date every day on Zillow. So if you go here and you can search for a zip code, a neighborhood, a city, a state. This happens to be Fort Wayne. It tells us Fort Wayne prices have gone up 7.8% in 1 year. And the market is very hot. Anybody surprised by that? I don't think so. I mean, I don't know how it could possibly be any hotter. But yeah, gone up 7.8% over the past year. If I go here and I say 46825, where that last rental property was, also says 7.8% in 46825 zip code. So that's a lot. I mean, that means prices would double every 9 years at that rate, which is about right. If you look at 2011 versus now, prices have almost, they're up about 60% over the last 10 years. It hasn't been 7.8. That's among the biggest jumps we've ever had. You guys with me? Don't let me lose you. So average appreciation in Fort Wayne, Indiana. If I look at 2010, the average was 104. If I look at 2020, the average is 147. If I got any economists or mathematicians on here, you'll understand that this is not exactly how you would figure that, but just to make it real simple, we'll say it's up 43,000 in 10 years, which equals 4.1%, which is pretty darn boring on the surface. You'd say, well, again, why would somebody get an average return of 4.1%? It makes no sense. So that brings us to why. And here you'll see the key again. So this is the meat of why someone would invest in real estate, because like this iceberg right here, you guys all know the story of the iceberg. You can see a little bit on top of the water, but like 50 to 75, 80% of the iceberg is typically underwater. You can't see what's going on under there. Same is true with real estate investing. So here's the rest of the real estate iceberg. So we said 7.8% last year in Fort Wayne. When you buy a rental property, you typically don't pay cash. Most real estate investors don't pay cash. Flipper maybe, because they're going to buy, fix, and sell. They want to get their money right back out. But a typical buy and hold person that's in this for the long haul, they don't just put $100,000 down to buy a rental property. They put 25% down. Or 20%. Are you with me on that? That surprise anybody? So you use leverage, use other people's money to buy a property. But if the appreciation was 7.8%, how much is that on a $100,000 property? That's $7,800. Now stick with me here. So what is my rate of appreciation? How much money did I invest to buy the house? 25% down. You with me? I didn't put 100,000. I only put 25,000 down, but I get the whole appreciation of 7,800. Is anybody having an aha moment right here? No, I can't tell by looking at you. So if I had put my whole 100 down and I got $7,800 back, that would be 7.8%. But I only put 25,000 down. But the bank doesn't get 3/4 of the appreciation. I get the entire appreciation. My property that I control went from 100 to 107,800. So I made 7,800 on my $25,000 investment, or maybe even my $20,000 investment on that case. So let's say it was 8%, just to round up, because I'm not that good with math. But instead of making 8%, I made 4 times that. I made 32% appreciation. You with me? I mean, that should blow your mind right there. Now, hold on, that's not it. At the same time, I made cash flow, which cash flow is basically all the money I collected in rent, minus everything I paid out, management fees, mortgage payment, taxes, insurance, repairs, whatever the difference between those two is, that was my cash flow. That could easily be another 1% to 20% on this property. So now maybe I'm at 30% return. But it's not done yet. The debt, I borrowed 75,000, right? It was 100 grand. I put down 25,000. Now the tenant is paying it down. After 1 year, I don't owe 75 anymore. Maybe I owe 73.5. So that's another 1.5%. I made another 1,500 for my wealth, right? My wealth increased because I owe $1,500 less after the end of that first year. So now I'm maybe at 32, 33% return on investment. But wait, there's more. I also got a huge tax break, which I'm not going to explain right now. We'll get back to it. But my income, the cash flow that I made on that property, I actually get a nice big tax deduction. So if I made, as a self-employed real estate agent, if I made, let's say I made 5 grand cash flow on this house. As a realtor, as you guys know, we got to pay somewhere around 30, 40% in taxes on that. If I made the same 5,000 on cash flow from a rental property, after my deduction, I might pay taxes on $1,000 of income. So that's another huge benefit. You got guys making 50,000 in rental income, but paying 0 taxes, paying nothing. So 50,000 tax-free is like making 80,000 and paying 30, 40% taxes. I can't tell by looking at it. You should be excited right now. You should be, oh, now I get it. Let me have this guy explain. This, I'm not sure how it's going to work, but when I tried it with Sally, it was a little choppy.
1.8 million vacant
But we're going to
houses
give it a
all
try here.
across the USA right now, and I know that number's going up with all that's going on. But what's important is
Let me know if you can hear this.
Button, and make sure that you understand that there
Can you hear
is
it?
no better time to invest than right now. And the reason for that is, for the risk involved in investing in real estate, you can find no better investment when you weigh out risk to reward than investing in real estate. Now, here's the deal. The market goes like this, all right? It always has, it always will. However, it's more like this. It's always trending up. And so if you're investing properly, I promise you there is no better time than now. And that will always be the answer when it comes to whether you should invest or not. And here's the reason why. When you invest in real estate, you literally get a return in 4 different ways. First off, you're going to be getting cash flow. Now, cash flow is essentially when you've spent your money on your mortgage, when you've spent money on all of your expenses, your management, insurance, every expense possible you might have. Once you've spent that and you get the rents back, your cash flow is what's coming off of the top. So your rents come in, all your expenses go out, and what's left is your cash flow. And if you're investing properly, that cash flow should be a 15% return on your initial investment. So
I don't know about that. It doesn't need to be. It can be 1%, but it should be positive. But I think this guy's a little optimistic on that. But I suppose if you're really only buying deals under value, that probably could be true. But I'm not worried about that with my investments. I'm not worried about getting 15%.
Right off, that 15% return smokes anything else you're going to find at this risk level in the stock market or anywhere else. No one is going to say, hey, for pretty low risk, you can get a 15% return on your money. That just doesn't happen. But here's the deal. With almost no risk in real estate, that happens consistently and has happened consistently for me year after year after year, even in crazy years like this. So I'm telling you right off, again, there is no better investment. And the first reason for this is because of the cash flow created through investing in real estate. The next huge reason you need to be investing in real estate is appreciation. And essentially what appreciation is it's the fact that your property will go up in value every single year. And on average, it's going to go up between 3.
Again, disclaimer, it may not go up every single year. It may go down a couple of years, but over time, it's going to go up.
And 5%. The thing that's so cool about this is if you're using leverage. So for example, if you're using a loan to buy a property, let's say you buy a $100,000 property and you buy it with only 25% down, so $25,000. If you're getting 3% appreciation every single year, that ends up being an additional $3,000 in added value that you have in equity in your property every single year. And it's more than 3% because once your property goes up to $103,000, it's going to be 3% on that and then 3% on that. So every year your property is becoming worth more exponentially. And the thing that's so cool is it isn't a 3% return. It's a 3% return times 4 because you only have $25,000 invested, which is 1/4 of $100,000. That means it's really a 12% return every single year. So now you've got a 15% return in cash flow. You've got a 12% return in appreciation. And I'm sure at this point you're saying, holy crap, there is no better investment than investing in real estate. But here's the deal. You also have principal pay down and tax benefits. Now your principal pay down is going to be a huge return as well. And that is also going to get exponentially better because as you pay off the loan on your property, so back to the example of the $100,000 property, you have $75,000 you borrowed. And so in that $75,000, every year you are paying more and more off towards your principal, and the interest amount of your payment that's locked is getting smaller and smaller. So again, that is an exponential return, and then you're going to save a ton of money on taxes. If you make $100,000 as an accountant and $100,000 as a real estate investor, you're going to pay way less as a real estate investor than you do as an accountant. Now, the reason I love
All right, you guys, back to my presentation here. Somebody come off of mute here and tell us did you learn something there? Anyone learn anything? Nothing? This is the audience participation part. Does some of it not make sense? You got to unmute yourself if you're talking. I can't tell by looking at you. Well, this is awkward.
So, hey, Chris,
Thank
what
you.
about the principal pay down? So if you have that $75,000 that you have in the money that's borrowed.
Yep.
Explain how that works again.
Yeah, well, it's just like your mortgage on your house. You know, part of your mortgage payment that you pay every month goes toward paying down the mortgage. So after 30 years, you owe zero. So, you know, if your mortgage payment, like on $100,000, the principal and interest is somewhere around, you know, $400.
Right.
And that's not all interest. You know, 300 of that is interest and 100 of it goes towards paying down the principal of your loan. But the good news is when it's your own property, you're the one paying that. But when it's a rental property, you know, that the tenant is paying that, not you.
Right.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yep. Makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Thank you for saving us. It's going to be one thing to say on here.
Chris, I got a question.
Please.
And maybe this is for everybody, especially the people who are investing. I know like on my mortgage, initially, like you're paying so much in interest. What do you do, if I can ask, or what do a lot of people recommend as far as paying additional money every month that would go directly against the principal. Would you ever take like all the cash flow that you have coming in and put more of that towards the principal to even lower that more?
Well, there's different philosophies on that, Patrick. So if you look at Dave Ramsey, he would say, yes, you should buy real estate, but you should never take a loan on it. You should pay 100% cash. So that's on one end of the spectrum. Forgot I had my camera off here. I was getting my steps, you guys. I'm not playing around. I'm getting my steps. Anyway, so on the Dave Ramsey side of things, it's very conservative. And then you got like the old school, no money down kind of investors who think the more you can leverage, if you can think about it, if you could buy a house with no money down, or let's say 3% conventional loan, then the appreciation, is through the roof. If you bought this house with 3% down, you only have $3,000 invested, but your return was $7,800 that went up in value. So you'd be at 200% return the very first year in that case. So the problem is, the less you put down and the more you owe on the property, the more danger you're in, the more risk you're taking on. So, so basically, if you had a rental property and you only have 10% equity and the market takes a 15% dip, you're upside down. And if you have to sell, you're out of luck, man. You got to be ready to bring money to the table. So most, from a real estate investment standpoint, most people learn in 2008, 2009, that if you're leveraged up to the hilt and you owe 95% on all your properties, if anything goes wrong, you are in bad shape. So, most seasoned investors, they don't want to do that anymore. They would rather have the mortgage paid down. Sorry, that's my mom calling. They had their first COVID case at the nursing home, so I think she's a little freaked out, as am I. So I'll talk to her in a little bit. But so what most investors would say, I think, Patrick, is rather than paying down the mortgage, because paying down the mortgage with your excess cash is not a real powerful way to increase your income. For example, let's say you owe 75, or on this house, you owe 75,000. If you take all the extra money and you just pay down, your payment doesn't change. You just don't have the money anymore. You owe less, so your net is, your wealth is increasing. But I think most investors would take that money, and rather than pay down the mortgage, they would first build up a reserve fund. So if the furnace goes out, they have money to cover it. If the house goes vacant, they have money to cover it. And then after that, they would put in a pot to buy their next property. Rather than pay down my mortgage $20,000, which doesn't do anything to my profitability of that particular house, I would rather put the $20,000 aside in an account so I have a down payment on the next one and I can do it all over again. That's how most investors think. That makes sense?
Very much. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else learn anything? Amy, you learn anything? Boughton? Treva? Anyone?
Good information.
Kelly gave a thumbs up. Yeah, I mean, this is killer. When you realize that the appreciation is just the tip of the iceberg, then it gets pretty darn interesting. Back to the presentation. So there's a whole lot more going on too, and I'm not going to get into too much of this, but it's a tangible asset. And what that means is you can put your hands on it. If you own Ford stock, there's nothing you can do that personally you can influence the value of that stock. You can't drive by Ford and make sure they're running it right, that they're cutting the grass, that they're not letting the weeds grow up through the place. There's nothing you can do. If the chairman of Ford, gets hooked on opium and starts doing stupid stuff and runs a company in the ground, you got no say in it. All you can do is watch your money burn to the ground. And a lot of people have done that. So a tangible asset, you could drive by. I can drive by that property in Millstone and see how the tenants are taking care of it, and I can proactively do something about it. I can have insurance, right? If Ford blows it and their stock goes to zero, there's nothing I can do about it. But if the tenant burns the place down because they left the oven on, I have insurance that covers that. They'll rebuild it for me and make me whole. So that's another one. Eventual cash out refi. I don't want to get too deep in this, but Patrick, let's say we do pay that down over the next 20 years. Guess what? If I sell my Ford stock after 20 years and I take the money because now I want to buy a Lambo, I get taxed on all that income. But if I have a rental property that's paid off and I take out 100,000 as a cash out refinance and they give me a check for 100 grand, guess how much tax I have to pay on that? Zip, nothing. There's no tax consequences until the property changes hands. So a lot of people, their idea is buy one property every year for 15 years on 15-year loans. And then after that 15 years, you can retire because then you can refinance, cash out the one you bought 15 years ago that you don't owe anything on. You cash it out. The next year you cash out the second one and you just do it all over again. And then you're done working. So 1031 exchange, again, don't want to get into it, but when you do sell the property, typically you have a big capital gain that you would have to pay taxes on. Savvy investors, you probably won't run into this a lot, but savvy investors know that you can actually sell that property and you put the proceeds with a title company and say, I'm doing a 1031 exchange. 1031 is the section in the IRS code that allows investors to do this, but basically you don't pay any capital gains as long as you put that money into another income producing property within 6 months. So if your property went from 100 to 400,000, normally you'd have a capital gain of 300,000. But if you put it in a 1031 exchange and you take the 400,000 and you buy a $2 million apartment complex, no capital gains. You get the use of the entire money. Rent appreciation. So typically rent goes up, every year or every couple of years. So it's not always going to be like, if I can rent that for $980, it's not always going to be $980. It's going to continue to rise with inflation. So you're kind of protected. Same thing, if I have a fixed rate mortgage, there's something, this is a really fancy term, but inflation induced debt destruction. What does that mean? Well, I like to think of it as if I could have 20 years ago gone to Wendy's and said, I would like to lock in my price of a chicken sandwich at $1.75 right now for the next 20 years. Well, that would have been a good deal because right now, if I could get a chicken sandwich for $1.75, it would feel really cheap, although it didn't 20 years ago. It felt like a lot of money back then. Same thing with your mortgage payment. Right now, we got mortgages at 3% for 30 years. So that on a $100,000 property, if you borrow 100 grand, it's about $415, $430, something like that, which feels like $430 right now. But 20 years from now, it's going to feel like nothing. Your rents will have continued to go up. Your payment's still, $430 for your mortgage. Your taxes and insurance may go up a little bit, but not like the rent. So that's what it means, inflation-induced debt destruction. It means the further out I can push paying off this thing, the less expensive it feels to pay it off, right? When I was growing up, a Snickers bar was $0.25. Now it's $1.89. So, we're just locking in the price of this house. So, all right, let's move on to how to evaluate. So here's the most basic. Running the numbers. Let's run the numbers on the property. So the most basic thing, there are basically 4 components: income, expenses. So your income minus your expenses, that's not your debt, but all other expenses, the trash, the property manager, pulling the weeds, cutting the grass, paying the utilities, any expenses that you have other than the debt. Is if you take the income minus the expenses, that's your net operating income. This is not a particularly interesting number to most investors. What they want to know is after you take your debt payment, your mortgage payment off of that, how much cash flow do I have every month? Has anybody thought about why so many investors from California, San Francisco, New York, China, Netherlands are all buying in Fort Wayne, Indiana? It's because the properties here, I mean, you could almost buy any property in Fort Wayne at full market value, and most all of them with these interest rates will give you a positive cash flow. If you bought a house right now in Seattle, the average price is $1 million. They can only rent the place for $3,500. So it's impossible to be a real estate investor in a place like Seattle or LA or, you know, even Dallas, Texas. You just can't do it. You lose money every month in hopes that the property will appreciate. Here, they come and they can buy a $200,000 property and rent it for $1,750, and they actually make money from day one. So, and this is just gonna increase as the prices continue to get silly in other parts of the country. So that's the basic, that's the most simple form here. This is what most investors use, something like this, which is the 4-square method, which is just what we talked about. Income, expenses equals, you know, minus your expenses, including your mortgage payment, equals your cash flow. And the big thing that's king for investors is cash on cash return. How much did I put out to get this investment property, and how much will I make this year? That's your cash on cash return. If you're in the stock market and you put in 25,000, unless you sell it, you're going to make zero, or maybe dividends or something. But so your cash on cash is zero. But if you invest in real estate and you have a little cash flow every month, then your cash on cash return might be 10%. That guy claimed 15%. I think that'd be pretty good. But you know, if you're a serious investor, you can probably get deals a little below market. So I'm going to go back to this one. You probably figured out I own this house now. This is one of my investment properties. And the reason I want to show it to you is because what I found is when people talk in general terms, it's just not, it doesn't stick. Like I don't really get it when it's just talking in general terms. So I want to show you, this is a house I bought 4 years ago, almost to the, 4 years and 2 months ago, I bought this house in Millstone. Here is last month's rental statement from my property manager. So this thing was rented for $980. I pay the manager $98, and they gave me a check for $882 last month on this. Okay, so this is for the year. This is 1007 Oak Bay Run. So this is the rent income every month, 980, 980, 980. Here's the management fees. I think I had a little expenses, but basically $5,292 for the first half of the year. Now I got to pay my mortgage payment out of there, so don't get too excited. But here was 4 years ago. This was at the closing. This was my mortgage payment, $588. So you can do the math. Every month I'm getting $882. I'm paying $587, which is about $300 a month coming in. Now, if it goes vacant, you know, if the toilet clogs up, if it needs painted, you know, I got to pay for all that stuff. So we'll talk about what that amounts to, but that would be $300 cash flow per month. You with me? But wait. I got a vacancy. My tenant moved out over the weekend. Oh, somebody's off of mute. Do you have a question? No question? All right, let's go back here. I got a vacancy. Bad news, right? House is gonna sit vacant. It's bad news. Would you agree? What I want to tell you is, so this is how I felt when it went vacant. You know why? Because I was still, you don't raise the rent when someone's still living there. So I was still getting $980 a month, but the house is now worth $125 or $130. So the rent is no longer $980 a month. So this is the thing I got on July 30th from my property manager. He's got an application for $1,295. So this is the real world, what I was telling you, your rents go up over time. So my rent just went, she's moving in Thursday. My rent went from $980 to $1,295. This is a good day. So I don't mind vacancies when rents are increasing. I got a guy over by St. Francis who is, he's still paying, I think he's paying $895, and I mean, I could probably rent it for $1,250 right now, but you know, he's been there 7 years. I can't raise the rent on him. I don't want him. I mean, I kind of do want him to move out or at least raise the rent, but the property manager says it's a dumb idea, so I'm sticking with him. He said it's going to need a fresh coat of paint and carpets cleaned. That was going to cost me $2,500. So it turned out when he went and looked at it after she moved out, it doesn't need painted. She left it in perfect condition after 4 years. So, so I don't have to do that. I just have to clean the carpets. The other bit, the sound of music. The interest rates dropped. My original loan was at, I think, 4.75, which was fabulous. But now I can refinance at 3%. 3%. So I'm saving, let's just call it 2% on 75,000. So I'm saving $1,500 a year on interest. So that's an additional $100 a month. So the rent went up by $300 a month. The payment went down by $100 a month. So you can see that, I mean, we're living in an unusual time right now where prices are really going up. But over time, that kind of thing is bound to happen, and it's happened, you know, on all the rentals. So I wanted to just show you how you would, I want to show you how you would do this. Now, this is going to be interesting. New share. You guys are going to be amazed with my tech ability here. Maybe. Maybe. Come on now, work for me. Oh yeah. Look at that. You guys see that? You see my little chart?
Yes.
All right. Oh, thank you, Patrick. All right, so here's the deal. I'm gonna try to write it right on here. So income. Originally, it was $980 per month. Taxes were about, and usually when we do this, we talk about monthly numbers. People don't talk about annual numbers. It's just too much work. So the taxes, when I got it, were about $150. The insurance was about $50, I think. The mortgage, crap, I don't remember. Wonder if I can go backwards. Mortgage was $391. Management, you see I got this 10%, 10%, 10%. This is how, that's my little formula, you guys, to make sure this property is going to work. I've never had a vacancy as high as 10%, and I never had repairs as high as 10% of my rent. You know, 10%. So if the rent is $1,000 a month, that's $12,000 a year. 10% would be $1,200 a year in repairs and AC and roof and all that stuff. I've never had that yet, but I use these numbers because I want to be really safe. So 10% of rent is $98 from a property manager. So I don't have to take any calls, get any tenants, collect any money. So I don't know, what's this add up to? 200, 590, 690, 790, 890. Let's put 880 just because I can do the math. So 980 minus 880. You with me? I brought in 980 and I'm estimating 880 going out. That means my income, whoops, my income is 980 per month. This is running the numbers, you guys. My expenses estimated 880 a month. So I'm making $100 per month. Doesn't sound very exciting. $1,200 per year. $1,200 per year that I'm making on this. So how do I figure my cash on cash return? I'm making $1,200 a year. How much did I say I put down on this? 25,000. So my cash on cash return on investment is, let's just call it 5% because that's close. Can you tell by looking at you? Is this all making sense? Are you guys paying attention? Yes? Do you think you could do that math with an investor? I have the worksheet, by the way, for you to download, so you will not have to remember how to do that. I mean, an investor is going to know, they're going to do their own thing. They're not going to rely on you to do this, but you need to understand what the heck they're talking about. If they say, well, you know, cash on cash, or what's my cash flow, or what's my management fees, you know, you're going to need to understand at least what the heck they're talking about. So the cash on cash is 5%. Now, I was counting on 4% appreciation, but again, I only put 25% down. So if it was going up 4%, it's actually 16%. Right? I multiply by 4 because I only put 25,000 down, but I get to take advantage of the entire 4,000. I planned on it going up. Went up more than that, but and then the debt pay down. Let's just, I don't know. I'm just going to say it was 1%. You know, they paid down 750. It's probably a little more than that, but something like that. So my total return was 22%. That was with the worst case vacancy, management fees, repairs. So pretty smoking deal, right? How many people would invest money at 22%? You should say yes. You should definitely do that. Now, when the thing went, the hills are alive with the sound of music. Let's redo the math here. Oh, happy day on Thursday when this new tenant moves in. Well, I want you to understand that how it started. You say, well, it's little, you know, to make $100 a month, that's a fair amount of risk, right? Maybe somebody had that thought. I don't think it's risky because I know over time it's going up and I'm not selling it. But
Hey, Chris, what about a small commercial property?
it's a different subject. You know, I don't know that much about commercial, and it works quite differently. You can't get a 30-year loan, I don't believe, on commercial. So it makes it a lot riskier. Plus, office space and all that right now is not looking too good after COVID. But there are a lot of people that do invest in commercial properties. I just don't know enough about it to speak intelligently. So let's go with this one, $12.95. Actually, just to make my life easy on math, let's say it was $1,300. It's $12.95. So taxes are now about $200 a month. My insurance is now about $60 a month. The mortgage payment, I think, is going to be about $300 after the refi. My management is what, 10%? Remember, I said 10%. So my management fee went up a little. I'm still, I'm at about 5%. I mean, actually, I never had a month of vacancy in 4 years. So I'm going to use 5% on this one. So that'd be $65 a month. And my repairs, the reason I bought this is because everything is in good shape. So my repairs, I'm still going to put the whole amount for my repairs just because I want to be safe. So let's see, that's 200, 330, 630, 700, 900. So now I got 1,300 income. I got 900 expenses. So I get 400 per month. Woo-wee. By the way, I'm taking 2,000 out, so now I don't have 25,000 in. I only have 23,000 in. But anyway, my cash flow was 4,800 per year, right? 400 per month, 4,800 per year. And let's just say I still had 25,000 invested. So now I'm at 1/5. I'm at 20% cash on cash. Last year, this thing went up 7.8%. So 8% times 4, again, because I only put down a quarter, and now they may be paying down another 1% on the debt. Oh, goodness. Put that on Do Not Disturb. So the debt pay down might be 1%. So now I'm looking at like 53% return on investment. It's hard to write triples like that. So that's how a person would run the numbers. You guys excited about that? That's why I think some of you all should jump in and get a property. The other thing I want to point out to you here is that something weird is happening here. I don't want to share my screen. Sorry. So what was I saying? So yeah, over time, the numbers just continue to get better and better and better. Now, someday I'll have to put on a roof, right? 10 years from now, I'll have to put on a roof. So to Patrick's point, I gotta be thinking about that. I can't just spend every penny that comes in and then suddenly I owe $8,000 for a roof. It's not gonna be pleasant. So I gotta put aside a little bit. So I choose to keep 6 months of payments for each property in a reserve account. I figure if all of them go vacant at once and all of them need a furnace at once, you know, I don't know that I could pay all that, but I mean, that's not going to happen. But I'm in a very safe position. I can sleep at night. That's where all those guys got in trouble in 2009 because they didn't have reserves. They were so busy buying more because they thought they would just buy and sell, buy and sell, buy and sell. But you got to have some set aside. All right. What do you think about this? Somebody tell me something an aha moment or whatever. Hello?
Very eye-opening.
Yeah, how so?
Just all the other ways that you have money coming in, like your cash on cash, just basically the 4 different ways. You know, I just initially looked at it as, you know, the money that you'd get above rent as far as cash or above your mortgage payment, but there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, man, the tip of the iceberg. That iceberg, that blew my mind once I finally understood. I even sold a couple rental properties recently because I had forgotten about all that, but man, I'm not selling anything anymore. I'm holding on to every one. The other thing I was going to say, you know, a lot of people say, well, I don't have $25,000 to get into, you know, buying a house. Well, here's the thing. The way I got into it, and I don't have that many properties. I have 6 properties. Some people got 100, 200, 1,000 properties, but I got 6, and 3 of them I got because I bought the house with 10% down. I stayed a year and then I moved and I bought another house with 10% down. So that's an easy way to get into real estate investing right there, is you just keep your house instead. What would happen if I put 10% down on that house? I lived there for a year and then I sold it. I sold it. I pay 6%. A normal person, right, would pay 6% to a realtor, prorated taxes, closing costs. They walk away with like $2,000. And they just sold the goose that lays the golden egg for $2,000. Whereas if they just would have stayed another 6 months and saved up $2,000 to use as the down payment for their next house, and they kept a hold of that. By the way, you notice, gosh, my mom is killing me here. Let me put that on Do Not Disturb. But you understand, lost my train of thought. What was I saying? Most of them will still cash flow after, you know, after you move to the next property.
You better take it.
I think so. Sorry, you guys. Hey, mother. Hey, I'm right in the middle of teaching a class, but I wanted to pick up. Oh, look. Okay. Well, let me call you back in 1 hour if I could, as long as, you know, there's no emergency. All right. Love you, Mom. Bye-bye. Okay. Whew. 27 calls in half an hour. It make me nervous. Sounds like she's in good shape. So yes, so a couple of those houses, I think 3 or 4 of them are ones that I lived in for a year or 2 years and then just held on to it and rented it out. So that's really a great way to do it. But people think you can only get like a 15-year note, a 15-year mortgage on a rental property. That's not true. You can have up to 8 rental properties and get 30-year mortgages. 30-year. Now, they do want usually 20% down. So what a lot of these flippers do, just so you know, fix and flippers, we got some on the call, they would get a rich uncle, right, that has money, that wants to make a good return on their money. And they would say, hey, rich uncle, I got this house, it's worth 100 and I can get it for 50 and I got to put 20 into it and then it's going to be worth 120. So I got a smoking deal here, but I don't have the money to do it. Karen, you're my rich aunt. You know, could you give me $75,000 and in 3 months, I'll give you back 85,000. You can make a quick 10 grand and I'll make a quick 10 grand. So that's what they do is they borrow the money if they don't have it themselves. It's called a hard money lender. In this case, Karen would be my hard money lender. She just knows I'm a good guy and I have a decent credit score. So that's about all the loan qualifying that I have to do. Karen's more interested in the house. Is it really? Is the after repair value really a lot higher? Because if I never make my payment to her, she's going to take the house and sell it. So she has very little risk if it's really a smoking deal like I think it is. So if I can convince her it's a smoking deal, she's happy to give me 75,000, turn around 3 months from now and get 85 or even 80. Make 5 grand in 3 months. Are you kidding? That's a smoking deal for a rich person, right? So that's how a lot of flippers do it. Or they would do that and then they would refinance with the bank. They would say, okay, I borrowed 75 from my hard money lender. Now I fixed this house up, it's worth 120. I'm going to do a mortgage for 96. I'm going to borrow 80% of the fixed up value. I'm going to pay Karen off her 85, and it leaves me 11,000. Love and life. So that's how they can hold on to a property. And that's why most of these investors that are flippers in particular, they pay cash. They don't get a loan because it increases their ability. That's why you may want to work with investors because a lot of them pay cash. So we'll get into that in a minute here. The lingo, you guys good on this little equation? This is about as much as you really have to understand right here. Income. So income, what other income could there be on a rental property other than just the rent? Guys, think of that. What other income could there be? Somebody unmute and tell me.
Deposits. Security deposits.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not
it. That's
technically income.
Yeah, it's not technically income, although most of the property managers do give that to you. But again, you got to set that aside because it's not really income. What about you install a washer and dryer? You got a little fourplex, and in the basement you put a washer and dryer that collects, it's $1 a load. Right? Or you got a storage building out back. And people store their boats up here. That's very common. People got my neighbor across the street has a big old barn. He has 8 people that put their boats in there over the winter and he collects money on it. So that's income that he would get from his rental property. Pet, my property manager, typically if you got a dog, he charges $25 a month, non-refundable pet fee. It's just add it on. So I just get an extra 25 a month for that. I didn't add that in our scenario there, but that's also added on there. And then, so income minus expenses is what? It's net operating income. Also here, NOI, net operating income. Then you reduce that net operating income by your debt, and that's your monthly cash flow. So in my case, it was 980. Minus 880 was my cash flow was $100 a month. All right, basics, income, expenses. And so these are the ones you want to understand. We already went over this. Income minus expenses, net operating income minus your mortgage payment, debt service, principal and interest, a lot of names for it. That gives you your monthly cash flow. Your cash flow, here's the example that we gave. The cap rate, we're going to skip. Some investors, this is more of a commercial thing. This is sort of a way of figuring out your return if you didn't have a mortgage. Not many residential investors do that. By the way, do you know there are people in Fort Wayne that own well over 1,500 properties? Did you know that? There are 4 or 5 investors in Fort Wayne that own a lot of properties. So do the math. If you own 1,000 properties and they each make $250 a month, that's $250,000 a month that those people are making just on the cash flow. It's pretty insane to think about. So your annual cash flow minus your actual cash that you outlaid to get the property is your cash on cash return. And you see I got this little crown down here, and that's because this is the granddad. Like, this is what most investors are most concerned with. What cash on cash return am I getting? So here's an example. You make $220 a month, $229 a month on cash flow, times 12 months is $2,750. That's your cash flow. You paid $30,000 cash outlay to get the house. That'd be, you know, $25,000 payment, down payment, taxes, insurance, closing costs, all that stuff. You paid $30,000. In this case, you have a 9.2% cash on cash return. The guy in the video said 15%. I don't know. I mean, after a few years, it's certainly possible, but that would be unusual. I mean, you'd have to get a pretty good deal. Bonus terms, we talked about the 1031 exchange, how to avoid paying capital gains legally. If I bought Tesla last year and it doubles and now I sell it, I got to pay capital gains on the whole thing. I mean, it's expensive. Blanket loan, when you hear about a blanket loan, that's an investor saying I have these 20 houses and I just have one loan that covers all 20. I have a friend who has a deal like that. He has 31 properties and he just has one loan. So he has one monthly payment that goes towards paying down that loan. That's more of a commercial thing. I think Greg was asking about that. Deferred maintenance, GRM. Yeah, fair market value. These are just words that you'll hear. I think you know what most of these mean. Gross rent multiplier. Just so you know, in Fort Wayne, if you're talking about middle-class housing, the way to take a pretty good stab at the rent is 1% of the value of the property per month. So if my property is worth $125,000, 1% of that is how much? That's probably the likely monthly rent. Yeah, Greg, $1,250. I got $1,295. So it's just a little bit above, but that's what, when they talk about the gross rent multiplier, we get about 1% per month. A place like LA, you get like 0.5% per month. That's why the numbers don't work. That's why if you look up turnkey real estate investing, there's tons of companies that will buy you houses in Indianapolis, in Terre Haute, in Fort Wayne. They take money from California and they buy houses for people here. And they got the management team, they got the plumber, they got the rental agent, they got the painter, and all the person from California does is say, here's $100 grand, go get me 4 houses. Sometimes they fly in and they look at them, but sometimes they don't. So that's what the gross rent multiplier, that's what makes Fort Wayne, Indiana, that's why our prices are going through the roof. It's not because a lot of people are moving here, although they are. It's because the gross rent multiplier is crazy here. Like literally, you can just take a map, throw a dart, and whatever property you hit, you can basically buy that house as long as it's between 50 and 200,000. You can buy it for full market value, rent it out, and make money every month. You don't even need a deal. Better to get a deal, but you don't need one. Hard money lender, that was my rich Aunt Karen there in our example, you know. Somebody who is, they don't want to put their money in a CD at 0.4%. They're not crazy about the stock market because, you know, 70 years old, they don't want to need the money and suddenly it goes tanks 40% in a year. So they find another way to get a return. House hacking. That's what we were talking about. When you buy a house to live in, you get owner occupied financing, and then you keep that house and you do it all over again. Or you buy a triplex and you live in one and you rent two. That's house hacking. And we hear people talk about that, especially millennials. If you got millennials, they all know about house hacking. Tons of them will want to buy a fourplex. By the way, you can get an FHA loan. Check your lender, but my last understanding of this is you could get an FHA loan, 3.5% down on a fourplex, up to 4 units. You got a single family, you got a duplex, triplex, fourplex. A triplex has 3 apartments. Fourplex has 4 apartments. So you could buy on an FHA loan a $300,000 fourplex, live in 1 unit, rent the other 3 out with 3.5% down. Maybe it's 5%, but very little down. Have the other 3 tenants totally paying all your expenses and you're living for free. Not a bad deal. I just listened to a podcast yesterday. The guy was 28. He was in Seattle, which everybody says you can't invest in Seattle. He was building houses to rent out by the room. So he was building 6-bedroom houses. A bedroom in this house in Seattle was renting for $1,200 a month. Just a bedroom. So he was making $7,000 per month on this house. I mean, that was the income. So $85,000 per year, and he was making a small fortune. But that's house hacking, extreme version. And he's well over being a millionaire. He makes well over $100,000 a year. He's still renting out 3 rooms in his house because he believes in house hacking. So, poll. Let me run a poll. Poll number 2. Oh, poll number 1, we already did. Poll number 2. So do you work with real estate investors? Just respond to that poll real quick, will you? There we go. Wow, I'm excited. This is good. Just gonna do 12 more seconds, so vote quickly. Sorry, Sally. She's an English teacher. I have to be on my best P's and Q's over here. All right, so I'm gonna end the poll, share the results. So it looks like 4 people work with flippers. 7, half of you guys are working with buy and hold real estate investors. That blows my mind. I would have never guessed that. 2 are working with wholesalers and 5 are working with no kind of investors. Interesting. So what is that, 29? Huh. Oh, some are working with more than one kind. So anyway, what's that? 9 out of 14 of you are working with investors. Wow. All right, stop sharing, close, moving on. So you guys are gonna love me if you're considering whether or not to work with investors, because I found this unbelievable guide. I mean, I couldn't have made this if I worked on it all year. It's a site called Bigger Pockets, which is the biggest residential real estate investing education website in the world. And it's really good, you guys. If you get into investing, this is where you got to be. But they wrote this Real Estate Agent's Ultimate Guide to Working with Investors. It's totally free. I got a reward. I don't want a reward. This thing is totally free. And look at the table of contents. It's incredible. The benefits, what you need to know, how to calculate cash flow, all the stuff we talked about. And then let's see, selling for an investor. Where is it? How to interview a potential investor client. This thing is 10 questions. If you get an investor like off of Zillow, or they just call you on a listing and you are trying to decide whether you want to work, because a lot of real estate investors will waste your time. They will, but not all of them. Some of them, woo, it's a gold mine. So what's your experience, Mr. Investor? What's your end goal? Are you trying to flip? Are you trying to buy and hold? Are you trying to wholesale? How are you financing? That's what we ask buyers, right? When they're buying their own house, we don't just assume they got their stuff together, and we shouldn't in commercial either. What strategy do you use? See, now that's a great question. Let them talk about it. If you ask these questions, obviously they're going to know that you know something about investments. So I'm going to send you the link to this later. What kind of investment property are you looking for? So again, Patrick asked, that made me think of risk and reward. So you have everything from executive rentals. There's a guy in town named Tim Smith that he buys houses that doctors would rent, furnished, everything. So a doctor comes to Parkview, they don't have time to fool around with anything. They're only going to stay a couple years. So they rent this guy's house in Devil's Hollow, for $6,000 a month. So that exists in Fort Wayne. Then on the opposite side, you got like my friend who owned the 31 houses. He bought those at tax sale. So people don't pay their taxes. You can go buy their house at a tax sale. And he's buying stuff that's, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, disasters of houses. But when you look at the return, he's making probably 100% return on his investment every year, but there's a lot of risk. You rent those really low-end properties and people trash them all the time. What's your chances of getting a doctor from Parkview that trashes your place in Devil's Hollow? I mean, it's really probably not going to happen. So your margin can be much, much lower. Mine, just so you guys know, just to give you a frame of reference, what I like to buy now, after this is about 10 years I've been after this, I want a box on a slab. I don't want a crawl space. I don't want a basement. I want a little attached garage. I don't want a gazebo. I don't want a screen porch. I just want a little box about 1,000 square feet with 3 bedrooms and 2 baths. And I want it to be in a decent, part of town, around 100 to 150,000. That's what I want. So if you get one, I'm a buyer. But anyway, what happens is you say, well, what if there's a downturn? Well, if you look at 2008, like the world came to an end for real estate. Realtors had a really tough time. Home sellers had a really tough time because even in Fort Wayne, and we were one of the least hit, our prices went down around 20%. Okay. So if you put 5% down and the value goes down 20%, that's how you end up with a gazillion foreclosures. Okay. But what happens to those people? If there is, some people are talking about a 2021 market crash in real estate. I don't know. I find it hard to fathom with the imbalance of supply and demand right now. But let's say it did happen. Well, what we know from 2008, 2009 is that house prices drop significantly. Rent prices do not. Because what happens is if there are, let's say there are 5,000 houses in foreclosure in Fort Wayne. Well, those are 5,000 units that are not available for people to buy or rent. So there are more people that need a place because they got kicked out of their house. So they need a place to rent, but there are fewer rental properties available. So the rents actually stayed very stable, even at the worst of the financial crisis. The rents didn't go down. So what happens is you got a guy living in, in Lakes of Pine Valley in a $350,000 house, working at MedPro, and he loses his job. So if he sells his house because he needs the money, he doesn't go rent a $3,000 a month place. He moves down, right? Still got to live somewhere. Got 2 kids, you got a wife, you got to have at least a decent house to live in. So that's why I want my houses to be at or just below the like the median, like the middle class type of place that they would rent. That's where I want it to be, because if times get tough, that's where people move. Not that many people move from $1,000 a month down to $600 a month, because the difference in those is enormous on what you get for $600 a month versus $1,000 or $1,200. So that's just from the mind of an investor. I want the middle class to be renting in my place. They don't move a lot. They don't get a lot of job transfers. They usually got a couple kids and a dog. So it's a pain in the butt to move. So they usually stay unless they are forced to move, as opposed to a doctor who's coming and going, and you know, they get a whim and they gotta go get something else and they buy a lake cottage, and you know, you keep them for 1 year. I want to keep them for 5 years or 10 years. The guy on the podcast yesterday, he had a lady living there 21 years. She paid for the house twice over, you know, but anyway. So this thing I'm going to send to you. Back to the presentation. So let's talk. Half of you guys or more are working with investors. What are the pros or cons? Give me a pro or a con of working with a real real estate investor. Some of you guys are working with them. Tell us what the pros and cons are.
For us, it's been property management.
What's
And,
that?
like, the property management.
Is that a pro or a con?
Well, for us, it would be in the con. So we've got investors who are coming in from all over the country who want to invest here in Fort Wayne. And for us to be able to communicate to them, like how they can take care of it or what resources they have, that's just been a struggle for us.
To find the right person for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you guys, there's an opportunity. If you've got a highly ambitious young cousin that wants to start their own business, if you can be the out-of-town property manager guy, there's a lot of money to be made in Fort Wayne, Indiana, because we got several property managers, but no offense, but there are not a lot of good ones. There just aren't. So yeah, I hear you. So that could be a con. Yeah, the property manager. I got a good one right now. I'm not going to say his name because I don't want everybody calling him, but he's a good one. But I had two bad ones before that. I mean, here's the problem with most property managers, and then we'll get back to the pros and cons. They are used to people pinching every penny. I don't want to pinch every penny. I want to put mulch down when it needs mulch. I want to paint when it needs paint. I want to, you know, if the driveway gets all cracked up, I don't want to let it go to pot. I want it to stay nice. I don't want the neighbors pissed at me that I'm the guy on the block that's letting the whole place run down. And I can't find property managers who want to keep the property nice because they're so used to everybody saying, don't spend any money, don't spend any money. Some even ask me, do I want to clean the carpets? I'm like, I had a tenant in there for 3 years with a dog. Of course I want to clean the carpets. That's disgusting for the next person. And one told me, well, you know, there's not that many available. They won't say anything if we don't clean them. I'm like, I need to fire you right now. What do you know? I want to clean the carpet. Anyway, other pros and cons. Pros and cons. Working with real estate investors. Don't make me do all the work, you guys. My voice needs a break. What would be a con working with an investor? Treva, help me out here, sister. What would be a con? You're on mute. You're on mute. Try pushing your space bar. Let's see if that works. Still on mute. Maybe I can unmute. There, I am unmuting you. Now tell us.
Okay. Well, my parents used to rent out a farmhouse, and there would be times that they would have to go collect the rent. They didn't have a property manager or anything else.
Yeah.
And of course, now it could take you a couple months to get them out, if then. And so, but I think the property manager would definitely earn their money, and I think it'd be a good way to go.
Yeah, you got to build that into the, I mean, I'm way too nice. If I had to go collect money, none of my pay, nobody would be paying me. They'd be like, oh, my mom, you know, fell down. I need money for her niece. I'm like, oh, just pay when you can. You know,
Yeah.
lose everything. So yeah, I don't want to fool with that. And evict somebody? Are you kidding? Who wants to do that? I don't want to do that. I want somebody else to be the bad guy. My properties, the tenants don't even know who I am. They don't even know I exist. And that's the way I want it. I don't want anybody calling me.
Now, what about the recent development from COVID, and they put a moratorium on evicting, and, you know, people could not pay their rent? Did that affect you?
It did not affect me. And apparently nationwide, something like 92% of people are paying their rent, which is just like 1.5% higher than a normal year.
Mm.
I mean, I'm sorry, 1.5% worse than a normal year. So I really thought that it was going to be a disaster, because anytime you allow somebody to, you know, to not pay something, I figured they wouldn't pay it. But so far, they're still paying it. But yes, it did really concern me when the government said you can't evict anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, that's nice, but, you know, BIP State Bank still wants their payment.
Right.
And that's why you've got to have, and you have to insist that your owners, if you do work with investors, they've got to have a fund available that they don't touch. That, I mean, I couldn't go forever, but if nobody paid for 3 months, I'd have been okay.
Would that
If they paid for
eviction,
2 years, I would have been a big, we'd have had a problem. Greg?
would that eviction situation be more in an apartment building?
No, I mean, it's the same eviction process, whether you're in an apartment or a single family home.
I just wonder if it'd be more likely that's where you would have issues.
I haven't heard that, but it's definitely possible. I mean, you do get a little different class of people in an apartment versus a home. They behave a little differently. Same thing, multifamily, the returns are a lot greater, but the turnover and the tearing places up is a lot greater too. The conflict, right? This guy wants to play his music real loud. This guy wants to, read War and Peace quietly. That's that's a big problem. But yeah, I
By
don't
the
know.
way, is it okay if we start calling you Uncle Chris?
Uncle Chris?
Yeah.
Why would you call me that?
Your story about your rich uncle.
Oh, no, that's Karen. That's Karen. No, I'm not rich yet, but I'm gonna be. I'm gonna get there. By God, just give this thing time, and the rents go up, and the loan goes down, and sooner or later, I'm gonna get there. By God. So okay, I'm having to beg you guys to tell me the pros and cons, but let's think about some others. So, an investor, a pro might be that if they're a flipper in particular, they might buy a house or two every month. That'd be a pretty good living if you just had one investor and they bought one house every month. That's 12 houses a year. And then they turn around and sell those. That's one sale every year. Now, a lot of them are going to say, well, look, if I'm going to give you 24 deals a year, I want a little cut on the, commission. Well, that's fine. Another pro you might have is they know what the heck they're doing. It's not a first-time home buyer, they know how to write an offer. They know what a good price is. They are decisive whether they want to buy or not buy. A lot of times they have cash. That's another pro. So your offer could look a lot more attractive. Frequently, they're not even in Indiana, as Karen was saying. They're not even here. So if you have a good relationship with them and you say, I found a smoking deal here. I was at this estate sale and they said they got to sell the property and I think it's worth 150 and we can get it for 140. They're like, done. You give them the e-signatures and you got yourself a sale in like 10 minutes. So that's some pros. That's some pros right there. What could be the cons?
Hey, Chris, I think a con would be the purchase price is going to be much lower than the median sale. So you might be selling some $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 houses.
Yeah, that's definitely could be a con. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Like if you're dealing with me, I want to buy $150,000 houses. I don't want to buy 30,000. I don't even show me one. That sounds awful. So not everybody, but yeah, it could be. And then you would have to say, well, does this make sense? And I would just as a past realtor, I would have to argue that would not be a good use of your time. Another con, Ryan, that was Ryan, right? Goldie?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Another con, right, is you got the investor who wants to make lowball offers on 30 houses in hopes of, just catching one at the right moment. So Buffini has a technique for those guys. It's called bye-bye. So do not go for that. That's a waste of your time. Even if you do sell 1 out of 30, if you got to show 30 houses and write 30 offers and make 30 counters and piss off 27 realtors in the process, no, that is not a great investment of your time. So that's why you want to interview these agents, right? You want to ask them these questions. How much do you want to spend? What neighborhoods are you buying in? Who's on your team? Do I have to figure all this out for you, like Karen said? Or do you already got this lined up? How many offers do you plan to submit? If they say, well, I don't know. I mean, like me, I'm not looking for a deal. I'm looking for that house on Oak Bay. Now that one, the only thing I don't like is it has a privacy fence all the way around. That's extremely expensive. If it, you know, if I got to replace that, that's extremely expensive. But other than that, it's perfect. So if you bring me a perfect house and it's priced just fair, or, you know, if you get it before it gets listed and then my aunt has to sell this thing and she's willing to go 5 below market, that's even better. But that's the investor you're looking for. And then what do you need from me? This is a great question to ask them. What are they expecting out of you? The other thing that I don't think is on here is, can I be your exclusive agent? If you don't ask that question, you know, don't be surprised. I mean, this is their business. Don't be surprised if they're working with 5 realtors who are all trying to feed them deals. Maybe it's okay with you that that's going on. Maybe it's not. I don't know. You could be working with 5 investors too. So you could turn the tables, right? And you could find a deal and present it to 5 investors.
So Chris, I have a quick question for you. Would one of the cons be insurance rates? Are they different, or is it just the same as it would be on any residential home? Because you're renting it out, are the insurance rates different?
The policy is a little different. Turns out the actual price is pretty comparable. It's just you have less coverage than you would on your own personal home.
Okay.
The stuff that really can go wrong, you're still covered. You know, a fire, tornado, you're covered for that stuff, but you're less covered. So I don't know if is it a con? I don't know. As long as you know what the price is going to be, I don't consider it a con, because you're just going to work it in when you run the numbers. My insurance is going to be $50 a month or $80 a month or $100 a month, you know. So I don't think so. Along those lines, though, there is a con that you might get sued, right? That's the danger you always hear from people, is landlords get sued. You know, the tenant didn't shovel the walk, and then the mailman, or, you know, the next door neighbor comes over with a piece of mail, slips on the steps, breaks their back, and the landlord gets sued. You know, well, yes, that has happened, but I've never heard of anybody personally that's gone through something like that. Where you have to be careful is the same place you always got to be careful. If you truly are negligent, like if you're truly being stupid, then yeah, you ought to get sued and you ought to lose. If the tenant has called 5 times and say, this furnace seems burning hot and there's this bright orange flame coming out the front of it, and you say everything will be fine, you know, because you're too cheap to go get it checked out. Well, if the house burns down, yeah, you should sue. You get sued and lose. But, you know, if something goes wrong, I just haven't heard of it. I do have my properties in an LLC, which is a limited liability corporation. And that's a good point. We didn't talk about that. Most serious investors will have their properties in some kind of what's called a business entity. And that's the reason for that is heaven forbid that did happen and I got sued by a tenant. They can't come after me personally. Let's say I have $5 million in the stock market and the tenant falls down and they sue me for $50,000. They can only sue that LLC. They can't sue me personally if the property is owned by a company. So, you know, I can't take my car and my house and all that stuff. It's in the LLC. This puppy farm is not sounding good over there.
Hey, Chris.
Yes, sir.
Is there a point where you would add multiple like rental properties and then start putting them into different LLCs, that they wouldn't all be under the same LLC, just to limit your exposure?
Yes. People, the typical rule of thumb that I've heard is $1 million per LLC. You know, most people don't have that problem. They don't own $1 million worth of rental houses. But if you're the guy with a couple thousand, you know, if you're Brad Pepple or Tom Smith, you better have several LLCs. Because again, if all 2,000 properties are in one LLC and you get sued, they can go after everything in that. But if you have a fourplex and that's in one LLC, and you got another rental property over here in a different LLC, and one sues, they can't come after the fourplex because it's not owned by the same entity as owns that single family house. So yeah, that's a good question. You know, you're talking about, this is not something you're going to have to consult somebody on. Anybody that's thinking like that or has that many properties, they're well aware of how to avoid or limit. You can't avoid it, but to limit your risk. Anything else? No? So that's kind of the pros and cons. I think there's some major pros. I mean, some people, oh, Kim, you're on mute if you're talking to us. Kim, I could see you were saying something. If you're talking to us, you're on mute. Nah, she's not talking to us. Okay. All right. 4 goals for today. You said you would understand why somebody would want to invest in real estate. Do you feel better about that? We do, yeah. Would you feel comfortable running the basic, numbers, income, expense, cash flow, those maybe the cash flow and the net operating income, maybe that's new concepts to you, but it's not rocket science. You just have to do it once or twice and see how it is. Talk the talk. So we've talked here, or I've talked here for a couple hours. I mean, I think if you listen back, all this stuff would maybe make a little more sense now if you have never dealt with investors. Although, again, 2/3 of you have. So maybe you've already had these kind of talks. But the investor, the important thing to know is the investor, this is a math problem for an investor. You got beauty contest for a buyer, usually. How much do they love the property? That's what a buyer wants to know. Is the backsplash cute? Is this master bath have quartz? That's what they care about. Investor doesn't care about any of that. They might care a little bit, but that's way down on the list. What they want to know is can this thing make me money? Can I buy it under value and immediately get some equity, or will it cash flow? Is it going to be easy to rent? Is it going to be hard to rent? Are there other ways that I can, for example, can I take a 2-bedroom that has a living room and a family room and turn the family room into a 3rd bedroom and thereby increase the rent from $750 to $950 a month? If there's an opportunity like that to add value, then they're going to be very interested in that property. If it's a country property, but there's a big old barn out back where they can, sell, and it's heated and cooled, and they can rent that out to collector car guys for $100 a month. They're going to be interested in that. So the numbers are what they want to know. What's this thing worth? How much money do I have to put down? And so forth. And decide whether you want to work with investors. So that might require a little more thinking on your part, but hopefully you got a better idea of what the pros and cons might be. I think the biggest pro is they know what they're doing. They're typically, unless they're brand new, they're very decisive. They know what they want, and they buy and sell multiple properties, a lot of them. A lot of these guys buy every month. So that'd be awesome to have. So poll, all right. Last poll. These are anonymous, by the way. I can't see who answers what. So my last poll is the value. So here, answer me real quick. Was it amazing? You learned a ton? Was it just worth your time? Or do you feel like you wasted a little bit of time here today? I'm tough. Not that tough, really, but I'm a little tough. So we got 9 out of 11 voted. So people were very kind to me. They said it was amazing or worth my time. Nobody dinged me. I'm going to quick end it before anybody puts that it sucked. Kim, yes.
The only thing that I had to put in was just a reminder to everybody that if we are holding deposits, that they have to be held in our escrow account.
So that's if the people own the property, like our team owns the property, right?
Yes, or if you're holding it on behalf of a client, if you're doing property management for them or something, but that if you're doing it for somebody else and they hold the money, that's fine. But if it's in your possession, it needs to be an escrow account, even if it's your own property.
Yes, that's a good point. So now I have a property manager who holds the money, so that's okay. But if I were renting it and managing it myself, like some of our realtors do, and somebody gives me $1,000 deposit, then I have to put that in Northeastern Group's account, which is
Yes.
actually a big benefit of Northeastern Group, frankly, because it's real easy to have 6 deposits of $1,000 in your checking account, and you think you're rich, and you forget very easily that none of that money is your money. You know, when they move out, provided they didn't tear the place up, you know, that you got to give it back. So I don't like it. My guy, no, I think the new guy, he keeps it. But my last lady, she sent it over, you know, she sent it over like income. I was like, man, hold on to that. I don't want that money. I feel like I'm, you know, have money I don't have when I do that. All right. Any final thoughts, you guys? I think I've covered everything I want to cover. Oh, you know what we could do? Just real quick here. Give me an address of something you have listed, somebody. Someone, anyone?
Not yet, but 3623 Charger Court.
3623 Charger Court. Normally it pops up here. Oh, you know what? I'm not in the right place. So this is your test. 3622?
23.
3623 Charger Court, Fort Wayne, Indiana. Okay, so this is a good one. This would be a good example. So this house is estimated, you know, let's just assume Zillow's right for the moment here. It's a $200,000 house. Okay, so what do we suspect this house might rent for?
$2,000.
Yes, you guys were listening. Amazing. Yeah, 2,000. You can unmute. I wonder if I can unmute everybody. That's probably going to be chaos, but unmute yourself and we'll just walk through this. So we're going to run the numbers real quick. So we think about 2,000. Now, where'd that number come from, you guys?
The 1%.
Yeah, 1% of the value if it's really worth 2,000. Now, if you get up to 300,000, 400,000, you know, that is not true for the reasons we talked about. You know, as the price increases, you can have a lower gross rent multiplier. As it gets down, you know, if this were a $35,000 house, maybe it'd rent for 700 still. So that would be 2%. But in that sweet spot, 100 to 200, let's just say, you know, usually about 1%. Okay, so we think it's going to get 2,000 per month. So what's the next thing we need to know about this thing?
The expenses.
Yeah, the expenses. So if it's 2,000, what did I suggest would be the cost of property management?
10% of rent.
Yeah, 10%. So 200. So take 2,000 minus 200. What do we say for vacancy? Just to see if this thing even works. Safe bet is how many percent?
5%.
10%, right. So another, take off 200. So now we're at 1,600 a month. Now we got repairs, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to look at this thing and see, does it need carpet? Does it need a roof? Or, you know, is anything on its last leg? That plays into the cash on cash return, because if it needs a bunch of repairs, you got to put more money out. But let's assume it's a turnkey deal and they can move right in. But still, what do I want to estimate for repairs?
At least 100.
Say what?
At least 100.
At least 100. I put 10%. So
200.
I just make it easy. 10% property management, 10% repairs, 10% vacancy. You'll almost never be that high on repairs and vacancy, but if it works with those numbers, it's gonna work. You're gonna be happy with your return. So now we got, how much are we gonna put down? You know, everything's gonna be different, but just assume this is a normal investor with less than 8 properties. They're just buying this as an investment. What do you think they'd put down?
Don't you have to have 20%?
Have to, if you have a rich, Aunt Karen, no. But if they go to, a regular bank, yes, 20%, maybe 25%, but let's put 20%. So there you're at 40,000 down. Would you agree? 40,000 down. So I think right here, somewhere in here, there's going to be a financing estimate. I thought. See, this is interesting. In 2013, it sold for 154, so it's gone up roughly 50,000. Well, crap. Well, there's a number of places. Can anybody tell me what the payment they think would be here?
Oh, at the top they had the refi.
Range, home value, price history. Yeah, I don't know why. Normally,
Maybe get current rates at the top.
if it were listed, they definitely would. Yeah, this usually will tell you what you need to know. If it's listed, it'll show the payment breakdown with 20% down. Yeah, they're going to be a pain here.
There's a mortgage calculator.
Where?
Right back on your page, right next to, at the top.
Yeah, they're going to ask me a zillion questions to try to sell my lead. Remember, that's what Zillow does.
Isn't there?
All right, just for fun. Bigger Pockets has amazing calculators. I'll give you the link to that as well. But just for grins here. Here. All right, so the home price, 200,000. Down payment's 40, 30 years. Let's just stick with their rate. So it tells me principal and interest 688. Insurance 100 a month. That's maybe a little high. Taxes 145. Okay, so let's just use their number. 933. Yes, 933. Where was I? Zillow, somewhere around here. Oh, did I click off of Zillow? Dang, I did.
So who actually pays the HOA fees? I just saw that on there, so it sparked a question. So as an investor, you do?
Typically, unless you agree to that with the renter.
Okay.
That would fall under your expenses. All right, so we got 2,000 a month coming in, minus 30%. That's 10%, 10%, 10%. Tax, vacancy, property management, repairs. Yes, so 2,000 minus 30% is 1,400. Now I got to take off my, say there's 50 bucks of HOA dues. Right now I'm at 1,350. My payment was how much?
$933.
933. So in theory, right, management, insurance, taxes, repairs, we got everything in there, you see? So now, what's that, 350 a month of positive cash flow? Is that somewhere around 350?
Yeah.
So somebody tell me the cash on cash return and how you figure it out. What would you do with the 350 cash flow? How would you start to get to a cash on cash return? Must have been a bad lesson.
Multiply it by 12?
Thank you. Yes, we need the annual cash flow.
So 4,200.
4,200, that sounds right. And then how would we know what the return is? How much did we invest to get this place?
So do you put 5%?
What's that?
40,000.
40, yeah, Amy said 40,000. That's what we put down. Now, we got some closing costs and the taxes are prorated, so that lowers it. But let's just say it was 40 just to make it easy.
Okay.
So we just divide the 4,200 into the 40,000 we spent, and what kind of return does that give us?
10.5.
like 11%.
God
Yeah.
damn. Who wants to buy it? Where is this thing? Maybe I'm going to buy it myself. You guys get out of here. These rent, you can see here on the screen, the rent estimate is always low for Fort Wayne, just so you know. I guarantee you that would not rent for $1,550. If my little 1,000 square foot place just rented for $1,295 and it's kind of a little bit tired, there ain't no way this thing would only rent for $1,550. So yeah, this thing, I don't know, where's it located? So this is the other thing, you know, a renter, you would say, okay, just from any kind of purchasing real estate, this would be smart to look at where is the thing located. So Bethel and Carroll, it's a good spot. Do I want the house that's right here? Do I want this house?
No,
No. Why?
because it backs up to Carroll Road.
Right. I mean, it might be okay if I can get a smoking deal that offsets the fact that it backs up to the road, maybe, but I like this one, right? This is at the end of a cul-de-sac. There's going to be no traffic. You know, I can look at the satellite view here. Oh, I got a swimming pool. Okay, cancel that. I don't want this thing after all. Sorry, Greg. But that's the kind of thing that it will add $50 to the rent, but it'll cost me a fortune in, you know, maintenance, and someday that's going to have to be repaired, and I'll never make enough to make that. And it's got a big old fence. So it's got two strikes before I even consider it. So I wouldn't want that one, but this one I'd love. Well, that one's got a fence. I love this one. I love this one. I love this one.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's kind of thought process that an agent or an investor would go through. But 11% return on investment is a smoking, that's quite a return. Now, if we took it further and we talked about the four, you know, these four things, the four ways. So if that thing appreciates, let's just say it appreciates 2% next year, it would go from 200,000 to 204,000. So that's an additional 4,000 that, you know, in my wealth bucket, it's an additional 4,000. I only put 40,000 down. So that's an additional 10% return. So now I got 11% cash on cash. I'm sorry, cash flow. I got 11%. I got 10% more on my appreciation. And the tenant paid the mortgage down from 160 to maybe 158. So that's 2,000 more. So that's 5% more. So I'm at 25% on this thing.
Jeez.
So, I mean, it's not like I didn't get a deal. I didn't have to work hard. This is why people are flocking in, you know, like Karen said, all over the country. They're all coming right here to buy property, because you just pick any of those houses. I mean, I wouldn't pick the one with the pool, sorry. But any other house, it works. You don't even have to be brilliant. I mean, you want to invest in Seattle or New York City, you better be really, you better sharpen your pencil and really know what you're doing. Here, you practically trip over yourself and be a millionaire in 15 years. Just buying anything that comes on the radar. And the beautiful thing as realtors, like Greg, let's say this thing really was a killer deal. You have to be careful, because you can't you can't take advantage of your seller. But you could say, yes, we can put it on the market. I think we can get 205, but I would be willing to buy it right now as is for 200,000. And just know you're going to get 5,000 less, but you're not going to deal with any nonsense. And I'd like to do that. And then, you know, you get the 6% commission. You know, you pay 20% down, but you got 6% commission. And you double dip the thing. So your production looks pretty darn good. So there's a lot of, I mean, my first house, you can't do this anymore. I think it's illegal or loan fraud now, but it was not back in the day. It's on Webster Street. I still own it. I was trying to sell it for my aunt. It was like 1996. I was trying to sell it for my aunt. I could not get a buyer. And I thought, man, this is a cute house. It was 45 grand. So I went, and at the time you could put 10% down on an investment property. So I put 10% down, and then I did a second mortgage that my aunt gave me, the one that was selling the house. You can't do that now, but she loaned me $4,500, which was my down payment. So I bought the house. I never paid a single penny to own the house, and now it's paid off, and it gets $595 a month. You know, it's my worst one. I'd love to sell it, but the lady will not move out. So I just keep collecting. But it's like the worst one I have. It's the lowest rent and the most hassle and the most repairs, you know. That's what I was saying. When you get, you know, this $200,000 one, you're going to get probably somebody's going to take care of it. They're going to pay on time. You know, when you're $595 on Webster Street, you don't get that. So you got to make a lot more to make it interesting. And you can only get 8 loans. You can get as many loans as you want, but you can only get 8 loans easily. So do you want 8 $50,000 houses that are appreciating, or do you want 8 $200,000 houses that are appreciating? That's the way to do it. I'll show you one other, and then we'll get out of here. Oh, it's time. If you got to jump off, go for it. I just want to show you this one that I bought and lived in, and then I rented it out. 8508 Shearwater. This is just another example. This is the house hacking, right? You buy it to live in it, and then move in a year or two. I stayed there a year, and then I moved. So this thing I bought for $123,000. I paid over full price, and I bought it within an hour with multiple offers of it going up. But this thing is now worth $156,000 a couple years later. I mean, this thing, my payment was like, I don't know, $800. And when I initially moved out, I rented it for $1,095. And now it's rented for $1,395. And even that's probably low because the people have been in there a little bit. But this is where, you know, this is the view out the back. So if you can get something like this and not overpay for it, there's always going to be somebody that wants a view like that. So that would be a major, major bonus. On the con side, there probably is some liability if there's a pond there, you know. But, you know, that one's just over time is worth more. The mortgage is going down. And, you know, 20 years from now, I'm gonna look like a genius for buying that. But it was just, you know, I bought it to live in because I liked it. I just liked the house, and it was a cute house, and I haven't spent a nickel on it. Is that true?
I have a question if you got a sec.
Yeah. Yeah, and we'll if anybody has to go, I'm not offended if you jump off of here. Our time is up, but I'm good to answer questions as long as people have questions.
Do you have to be careful when you're looking for an investment property of how many neighborhoods will not allow you if there's a restriction to rent it out?
Yes, that is an excellent question. You want to look at the homeowners association, make sure that you can rent the dang thing out. I house hacked. I bought a villa in Lake Point Villas, and that sucker, man, that was my best rental. I was making a killing on that. And then the homeowner association voted that you can't have rentals in there. So I had to sell the thing, and I was pissed. But yeah, some neighborhoods will not allow you, especially condo neighborhoods or villas, it will not allow you to rent the property. I think Southwood Park may have put that in place even. So yes, I'm glad you asked that. That is a major problem. And I had one, I sold the listing. I felt bad, but I didn't know what to do. I sold the listing to an investor, and I knew that you could not rent that house in there. But my responsibility wasn't to the buyer or the other agent. Like, you know, that my responsibility was to sell the house for the seller. So I couldn't say anything about it, but I did feel bad. So I think the guy turned right around and sold it again. But yes, good question. So be careful with that. What other questions you got?
Nothing.
Going once. Going twice. All right. I think that's it then, you guys. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Chris.
We bet you. It was
Thank you.
a pleasure to share this with you guys. I hope you choose to work with the investors, but I really hope that you interview them and make sure you've got a good investor. Otherwise, you're going to pull your hair out. But if you get a good one, man, it is a gravy train gold mine and really fun too. So anyway, you guys have a good one. I'm shutting down the meeting. Take
Thanks.
care.
See you, Chris. Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.